بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give His mercy on Dr. Jamal and my father. In fact, of course, it's been very difficult, and since I know this is the time for me to speak about, I think both, especially this topic about Fiqh Council, will take both Dr. Jamal and my father, Dr. Alwani. But mainly, it's really the beginning when I thought about the title of Renewal Islamic Thought of Dr. Jamal. I thought, maybe there are so many areas that I can really talk how we, when I was working also with him on different projects about this, we can talk about. But specifically about Fiqh Council, and I think maybe most of you, if you're familiar with his last years, maybe 2-3 years of his life, the final years of his life, he mentioned Fiqh Council so many times in different occasions. And not only this, but even, of course, he was involved in trying his best to revive Fiqh Council. And it was our last conversation just before when he was at the hospital. And I think even Ms. Suzanne's, his wife, mentioned that was his last work meeting with me. And he really specifically said Fiqh Council should be calling on Fiqh Council to carry this responsibility. And he was really tired, exhausted, but he forced himself to just sit down and talk and finish his thoughts about this institution. His vision, it seems like, it was very clear. And I can say, I asked myself, why does he really care that much about this institution? Maybe my quick and short answer for this, because he himself, throughout the 3 decades of living in America, he witnessed the impact of this institution on Muslim community. Not only on the growth, but the intellectual and also the building, establishment of the Muslim community in America, and the impact of Fiqh Council on this. So I will just try in my few minutes that I have to just go through briefly about at least the history and the involvement of Dr. Jamal, but also the contribution, the main contribution. Why should we care about Fiqh Council to be here? So, of course, the council really, originally it was just a religious affairs committee of the Muslim Student Association, MSA, in the United States and Canada. It was in the 1960s. And then, as a religious affairs committee, evolved into the Fiqh Committee of Islamic Society, ISNA. After that, receiving all kinds of questioning and all kinds of challenges. So in the 1980, they decided to have a Fiqh Council of North America. In 1986, it was the final transform into that council. At that time, for almost 15 years or more, it was led by Dr. Jamal Alwani. As the American environment, being home for many Muslims, and that's what it really presented, it presented many challenges that it comes with family issues. Now you have, and especially that we're talking about the 80s. The 80s now, the family are established here, the community is established. So they start receiving many questions about marriage, divorce, inheritance, even other issues related to economy, politics, the involvement of American community, Muslim community. And at that time, this council started not only to deal with the issue as a fiqh, as only the Islamic jurisprudence in the traditional way, but it was started to take that question and then form intellectual, spiritual, also legal discussions about each issue. So that kind of course, the debates and discussions requires planning, requires identifying experts in different fields according to each question, and also a host that to really see that they can provide that type of discussion. So from this IIIT, and of course with the working between Dr. Jamal and Dr. Alwani, provided at least that kind of environment for the intensive debates and discussions about different issues. The main thing I think it was mentioned before, that the idea itself of the Fiqh Council to establish that identity, the American Muslim identity, living in America, and America as the home for Muslims. And in this case, it changed, of course, the question, because in this, you have to think about yourself as American and how do you live this life. I will mention just 2 or 3 examples just to show you the contribution of Fiqh Council from that time. First, that mentioned also by Dr. Jamal, but it's part of also the articles and other issues about Salatul Jumu'ah, the Friday prayer. Friday prayer and the prayers in general was part of the discussion. And living here in America, Friday is a working day for most Muslims and Americans. And in this case, how do they attend the prayers? Tremendous time and debates and dialoguing about these issues, because it has roots within the fiqh volumes and literature about specific structure about this prayer. But at the same time, now you have to understand also your environment, your culture, the custom, and the area you're living in. And looking at the future of Muslim community. So based on years of debates and discussions, now they decided really to bring, as also one of the statements that Dr. Jamal mentioned, is to bring Jum'ah or the masjid to the Muslims everywhere, instead of challenging them to come to the masjid itself. So at that time, now even in Virginia, for example, Adams Center, they have branches and they have so many areas for Muslims to go. Not only this, but really, and this is the vision of our pioneers here. The vision is to also expand that type of relationships. So now you have Muslims are also praying in synagogue, in churches, in the Capitol Hill, everywhere you can find 10 maybe or less Muslims in that area, in any work area, you will find Jum'ah. You can ask and you will find. That was the vision, and it wasn't 20 years ago. It wasn't that easy for them to discuss all these issues, by the way. Especially when it comes with the specific fiqh rulings towards this. But that vision of Muslims living here in America, and America is their home, that's the vision to build also this culture. The other thing is, it's also amazing about the question where was asked, I think at that time, by Ali Abu Zakub, about the participation of Muslims in a political process. It was, and especially the details, and when you see that question, is it halal or haram? Is it permissible or prohibited for Muslims to engage in that process? That was the question, and really it's there. And when you see the question, then when they came to that intellectual discussion, at the beginning you go with the fiqhi and you try to serve and to really read everything about that question. And then they change the question. The question is wrong. We need to edit the question. So what should we ask in this case? And then they listed, and you can find it, of course, even in my father's fiqh for minorities, like 10 other questions. You have to study the environment and what type of political system is there, and what's the impact on not only Muslims, but Muslims who live in the society, and what kind of society that you want to be. So voting, and now I think people, our young generation who are working in the White House and the Capitol Hill, maybe even they don't think about that tremendous work that and discussions took place at that time. So, and there are so many other issues, even about marriage and divorce contract, and maybe Imam Majid knows about this more, and the impact. So Dr. Jamal, I think, when he was complaining in his last speech at Adam Center about Fiqh Council, and he was calling, and he was very emotional when you watch his speech at that time, calling for the Fiqh Council to revive and do and carry that responsibility. It's not only about the institution itself as Fiqh Council, but it was more about the mission of Fiqh Council. And at that time, it means how do we answer, how do we respond to all kinds of challenges that we face here as Muslim Americans and Americans Muslims here, regardless of what we do. So in this, what we need maybe first of all is really to have leaders who work hard on this and try to find ways to go at least even to original, and that's what inshallah I think IIIT are trying to work and continue to work on this, is to have that question and have experts working on this, in addition to, of course, also Islamic scholars, and working all together to answer this, because the challenges are beyond one person to answer, but it has to be with the collective ijtihad, with the collective beautiful minds to work together and find the solution. May Allah give him mercy and help us to continue his work. Thank you.